Thank you, thank you. And welcome to Living Right with Dr. Ray. Thanks for being with us. I'm Ray Guarendi. Next hour, we're hoping to help you a little bit live right. Delighted to have you folks here. We got a great show today. We've got, of course, Father Larry Richards coming on to tell us all about catechism wisdom and how that compares with worldly wisdom. We've got a real child psychologist. You don't have to just put up with me. A real child psychologist, Oriana. And she's going to tell you how to massage your parents, psychologically speaking. Also, Rose Sweet is coming with us. She is a nationally known Catholic speaker, author, DVD series person on marriage, Catholics who have been victims of civil divorce against their will. So Rose is going to give us a lot of good stuff. Now, I've been noticing here with this group, looks like some of you have raised your children. Looks like some of you have more than one child, because I can tell by the tick. I can tell by the tick. Some of you may have one child, and as long as a teenager, you still have a tick. All right. Have you heard of something called the birth order effect? The birth order effect basically says where children are in the family is kind of how their personality takes shape. You know, the baby's kind of spoiled because the baby gets everything. The oldest one's the achiever. The research essentially says just a little bit of truth to that, a little bit. And the place it holds the most, oldest and only, as a group. They tend to be a little more achieving, developmentally a little quicker. I don't think that's their position. I think we all change our styles. First kid, you boiled everything she came within 50 feet of. Last kid, you throw them this big dirt ball. Say, here, chew on that. Wipe your mouth off in the gas can before you come in the house. First kid, dual videotape of every burp and bowel movement he ever had. Last kid, one snapshot at the birth, one at the wedding rehearsal dinner. Dad, how come I got no pictures? That's not true, son. Your sister did a popsicle stick sketch of you in kindergarten. We kept it. Besides, you look like your sister. Use her pictures. First kid, you sneak into her room every night. You stick a mirror underneath her nostrils. Make sure she's still breathing. Last kid, you tell the dog, get out of the crib. Don't lick her in the face. No, I was talking to the baby. You don't know where that mouse been. Poor dog. Somebody asked my wife, when our ninth one, Peter, about 2-3 months old. By the way, I do have 10 children. That is why I'm here. It's quieter here and it smells better. Our ninth one, Peter, 2-3 months old. Is Petey sleeping through the night yet? My wife said, I don't know if he is. We are. You know, you kind of just get to that point. So, speaking of getting to that point, this is my favorite part. This is kind of what I do for a living, but I get a chance to do it here on a much more condensed basis. This is where we take questions from the group. And, by the way, you get cheap, free advice. You don't even have to pay for this. So who's got our first question? Yes, ma'am, your name?
Carolyn.
Hi, Carolyn.
I have a question for you. I have seen you several times, both on the stage and both, you know, working.
I didn't repeat my material, did I?
No.
Okay.
Not at all. And I was curious, because you're always up, you know, never down, always up with everybody. And I just wondered, do you ever get angry?
No, I don't, okay? Are you happy? What kind of question is that? Of course I do. I live with children. God puts them in there. I don't know, I just keep adding days to my purgatory. I read somewhere with each kid is like another 12 years in purgatory or something like that. Do I get angry? You know what anger is? Anger is how you think. Anger is how you think. It's the thoughts underlying the emotions. All right? If I play softball and I pop up to the infield with the bases loaded, and I take my bat and I fling it against the screen, I'm probably telling myself I'm a terrible ball player. I'm an awful ball player. What am I even doing here? This is foolish. This is supposed to be recreation. I'm not having any fun. Because my thoughts are making the pop-up much worse. It's not just a pop-up to the infield on November 3rd, 1996. What it is it's a pop-up that says, Ray Grendy's a bad ball player. When you think like that, and we're going to have a role play here in a little bit, and what's going to happen is you're going to see that our mother is going to take this very personally. You want to take something personally, you're going to get angry. You try to control your thoughts, they control the emotions. It's a good question, Carol, and that is the basis of a lot of therapy, by the way. Okay, what you have to do as a therapist, you take the client and you find out what they're thinking. If they come in and they have anger management issues, which is the real shibboleth nowadays, you go right at their thoughts. What is happening in your head to make you react this way? Great question. Ticks me off. Yes, ma'am. Your name?
My name is Margaret Wakeman.
Hi, Margaret.
My question, I've seen you several different times, okay?
You got to get a life here, Margaret.
You seem to know everything relating to your faith, because I see you as a very, very faithful man.
Well, it's easy for me to act that way, isn't it? If you put me in the nitty-gritty with the home, then that's where it starts to unravel a little bit.
What I wondered was, if you have someone come to you for counseling, and they happen to be not of any faith and maybe a little agnostic, how do you handle their counseling with all your faith and all your beliefs that you do put into you're even emotional about it?
Yeah, Margaret, some people come to me because they want religious-based, Catholic-based, Christian-based advice. Some people come to me, but they don't care, they could care less. All they want to know is, I'm hurting, make me live my life better. As you'll see today with Father Larry Richards, God's truth is truth, no matter whether you believe there's a God or whether you don't. So what I'll do with somebody who comes in and basically says, I'm not religious, I'm atheist, I'm agnostic, and I get a lot of those, I will work on their approach to life that is grounded in some kind of traditional moral understanding of life. Let's say a guy comes in, he's going to leave his wife and kids. He has no religious commitment. As far as he's concerned, feelings gone, I'm out of here. I got 3 little kids, 10, 6, and 2, so what? The neighbor lady's cuter. Okay? With a guy like that, I start to approach it from the perspective of, what are you choosing? What is the shift here? Okay, so you leave your wife and you hook up with the 27-year-old and you guys start to live your life together. What's going on with the children? What do you think is going to happen when and if your wife decides, well, I'm going to get married again, and now there's going to be a stepdad raising that little 2-year-old, and the 2-year-old's called in stepdaddy daddy. Okay, so in fact, there is a standard, strong, moral underpinning, even if you say it comes from God or it doesn't. And that's a lot of what I do. Interestingly enough, you ask somebody in therapy, where does God come into all of this? Most people will then tell you, I do believe in a God, but I'm not really quite sure what he thinks or how he thinks about this. We've got the opening to talk. It's a critical issue in their life.
So you can convert, maybe.
Well, I have had clients do that. And it isn't because I overtly evangelized or proselytized. It was simply because they saw wisdom in a better way to live their life. Okay? Other questions?
Dr. Ray, my question is, I come from an annulment with my wife and former wife, and I was wondering, it seems when we discuss serious issues to deal with the kids, there's always tension.
You're not on the same page?
Not at all.
Okay. The most common problem of divorced situations, by far. This parent's raising them over here, this parent's raising them like this. 2 things I'm going to tell you. Don't compete with her. Do not try to be as Disney as she is. Do not try to be as permissive as she is. You'll lose. Okay? You be who you are. And you hope and pray that those kids come to understand that my Father's way is a better way. And one thing I can tell you that will give you hope. All the years, I've been shrinking for a long time. I used to be like 6'9". all the years that I have seen those situations, typically the Disney parent is the more unreliable parent. And the older kids start to see, my dad's stricter, but I can count on my dad. Now, we're going to cut it short on questions because easy enough to ask questions. We're going to go to the nitty-gritty. We're going to do a real-life question. You look like I could manipulate you into saying what I want you to say. Your name?
Elizabeth.
Elizabeth. Come on up, Elizabeth. Going on the fly here.
All right.
You're my mother.
Okay.
This is the second year of my marriage. I'm not coming over on Thanksgiving. I'm not coming over at all. I am going to my wife's house and spending breakfast, Thanksgiving dinner, and the evening football games at her house. I'm 31 years old. I have been at your house forever. Okay, here we go. Mom, Tiffany and I we're not coming over this Thanksgiving. We kind of decided it was probably best just to go to her place and spend Thanksgiving there, if that's okay with you.
Whoa. What did you just say?
Tiffany and I are going over to her mom's house. I just figure maybe it's time to start a new tradition, maybe alternate one.
Wait, honey. Did you say you were going to have breakfast, dinner, and a football game there?
Well, that's kind of the way they set it up. I've been coming to your place for a long time.
You're telling me, ever since you've been a baby, honey, you've been at my table. What are you trying to tell me?
Mom, it's a situation where...
All the kids will be here. Your cousins are coming from New Jersey and New York, and they're all going to be here. They're looking forward, honey.
I know that, and if it were up to me.
Yeah.
If it were up to me...
Wait, who is it up to, honey? You're a grown man.
I think Tiffany feels a little bit like you don't...
Oh, Tiffany.
She doesn't feel like sometimes she's welcome at your place. And
Tiffany, this darling wife of yours that I have nursed along and showed how to cook and shared my recipes with, this Tiffany?
See what's happening here? Remember how I said thoughts make you angry? She's taking it personal. Are you taking this personal?
Yes, I am taking this very personal.
As soon as she took it personal. Now, reading between the lines, you be the shrink.
Okay.
What am I doing?
Placating your wife.
I am. You're absolutely right. You see how I ducked it? Over mom. You see how I ducked it? I wasn't going to get into it. Here's why. If you're in a situation like this, and it comes mom versus wife, mom versus husband, dad versus husband, sadly, most of the time, parents are going to lose. Parents are going to lose. Parents are going to lose. I have to live with her.
That's true.
And I'm making a judgment. Maybe it's a sissy judgment, but I'm making a judgment that I've got to placate her. I've got to go along. You don't know what went on behind the scenes. You just don't know. And so you don't know, and I see this in therapy all the time, what the spouse is living with. So I figure my mom's always going to love me.
Yeah.
I got to live with that person. You're beautiful.
Yet, you know what? I always think of that expression. A son's a son till he takes a wife. A daughter's a daughter for the rest of her life. Well,
I'll tell you what. I would not want to tangle with you as a mother.
Thanks, honey.
Hey, Dad. I could take questions from you folks all day, but I got to go to the mailbag. Or, in the interest of gender sensitivity, the person bag. This is from Roseanne. Roseanne doesn't give her address. It's far away, though, because it looks like it's printed far away. Dear Dr. Ray, this probably seems like a strange problem. I have a kid who is too good. Given copies of this to all my children. He's 16. He has been raised with very high standards, but now he seems unable to relate to those who don't share those standards. Even though I have pointed out numerous Bible verses, Jesus eating with sinners, a speck in your brother's eye, it doesn't seem to matter. He would rather have no friends at all than to just accept people as they are. He's actually pretty immature for his age. He still thinks being Batman is a viable career option. I worry that he's going to get eaten alive when he goes out in the big bad world. A kid that's too good. I had a mom ask me that one time. He's wonderful. I said, well, it sounds great. What's the problem? Well, you think he's too good? You think someday he's just going to blow up and torch the neighbor's garage? No, I don't. That's the stuff of TV media people. What's going on here, it's typical. Every kid's attitude towards life is interlinked with his temperament. Okay, so you got this kid that's kind of this easygoing, wanting to hold the high standards temperament kid, and he's getting out in the real world and, oh, you smoke? Oh, you watch those kind of movies? Oh, I don't put that on my computer. As my wife once said with our children, how do you teach a kid that something is wrong without it spilling over into judgmentalness? Because little kids go, you didn't put your seatbelt on. You didn't put your seatbelt on. Put your seatbelt on. Grandma's not putting her seatbelt on, Mom. Do you believe that? Grandma's not putting her seatbelt on, Mom. Tell her to put her seatbelt on. That's what happens. And some kids take it further. Some kids basically have to mature through several years where they realize not everybody does it my way. And the true virtue, this is what's interesting, the true virtue is still reaching out to those people. Virtue is not measured by, I'm good and you're not. There's a chasm between us. No, virtue is measured by, I know what I've got the grace to do, maybe you don't, so I'm going to care for you and love you anyway. Interestingly enough, and I tell this to parents, they're going to come around, but some kids take a lot longer than others. And sometimes, if you're going to have that attitude, you are going to have less friends. But if you got a judgmental attitude, it's a given. You're going to have less friends anyway. When we come back, Rose Sweet is coming to the program. Rose, great lady. I've been carrying her career for years, but that's another story. Rose is going to tell us all about what happens when Catholics are part of a divorce they didn't want. Don't go away.
The first thing I say is go to the church. She's our mother. She's got wisdom. She's smart. She can help you through this.
If you just tend to disappear every now and then, you know, and go upstairs and read your book for a couple hours on end, you know, they appreciate you a lot more when you're not there.
I just have one question. Is that for Rose? Or is that for me?
A little bit for you.
A little bit for me. My mother's here. Well, welcome back. Living Right with Dr. Ray. This is our guest segment. We are delighted to have with us Rose Sweet. Rose, I can't list all your stuff because it will take up the interview. Author, numerous books on marriage, annulment, sadly divorce, step parenting. You have series. I met you years ago working on a series, myself, Father Mitch, Chris West, Father Donnelly.
Callaway, Father Donald Callaway.
Callaway, okay. So we got a chance to meet, and I wanted to have you on the program because you've lived this stuff for a long time. You don't ask a woman how many years, but you've lived this stuff.
I've lived it, and with the grace of God come through it, and I'm here to help others through it.
What is the difference between a faithful Catholic having a divorce pushed upon him and someone who basically goes the cultural route that says, hey, you know, we got tired of each other, we don't get along, this happened, etc. We're splitting, it's quote unquote better for everyone. What's the difference here? What do you see the struggles?
Well, marriage takes two people, right?
You're brilliant.
Okay.
You're brilliant.
And divorce only takes one. There's only one person who can leave and the marriage has fallen apart. Okay, and if you didn't want it, what do? In a certain sense, you're the victim. Now, that doesn't mean that you're without sin. You may have, aided to the problems in the marriage, but you are sticking to your vows and the other person left. But I also want to say, what if you left too and you didn't want to?
What do you mean by that?
Because your husband hit you for the 3rd time last week and broke your jaw this time, and he's making moves on your daughter. You don't want that divorce, but for some reason you have to file. So I run into people who are both not wanting to file for divorce and having to file for divorce, neither one wanting that divorce.
People misunderstand how the Catholic Church has taught on this, which is you can't leave a situation like that. You somehow have to stay. Your husband is gambling away every bit of money in the family, is going to leave the family destitute. Your wife has just had her 4th affair and she's moved out for 2 years with some guy. They would say, who is the Catholic Church to say you can't split under those circumstances? Clarify that misconception.
Well, first of all, I would suggest go get your Catechism of the Catholic Church. This stuff is in there, and it's very clearly written. And you may still be married, but that doesn't mean you have to take abuse. You protect yourself from physical harm, you protect your children, and then you get counseling, you go see your pastor, and there are things that the church can offer you, but you don't have to be a victim. That is different than your marriage. Your marriage is another issue that they'll help you take a look at later.
Do you have any stats? Do you have any figures on what percentage of practicing Catholics are civilly divorced against their will compared to the general public?
You know, I don't have stats on that because, and this is sad to me, in the church, and most of the churches, divorce has been such a taboo for so long that we don't gather statistics because we don't talk about it. But in my work with the divorced and separated and remarried, I would say 50% of the 50%. There's usually somebody in the marriage who knows we could have worked it out if we just tried one more thing, and the other one said, I'm done. We tried everything. I'm out of here.
One of the saddest things I get in therapy, a spouse will come in and a spouse will say, I'm here because I want to save my marriage. My spouse says he or she would come in, maybe they'll come in next week. Typically, as soon as they come in, it is clear they want no part of this. And it is clear that they're coming here just to say, see, I went to counseling. Are you happy now?
Right.
I see that all the time. Now, in those situations where there is a civil divorce among, well, a serious Catholic, I get a lot of calls like that in the radio show. How hard is it for I'm going to say the victim spouse, to live a life, not remarry, because they're viewed as married, especially with family members and friends who say, you got to get out, you got to date, you got to meet somebody, you can't just sit here.
It's so hard because the pressure is go on, get back on the saddle and ride off into the sunset again. But you know what? Divorce is hard, being chaste is hard, being human is hard, being married is hard.
Not for my wife. It's been pretty easy for her. You know, I've told her that.
You know, maybe I could help her get an annulment. I don't know. Maybe we could talk about that. No. Seriously. No, life is hard. And, you know, I don't want to discount the struggle that divorce is or trying to stay faithful to your vows. That's why we need God's grace. But He carries the bigger part of the cross for us. That's where our faith comes in. Yes, it's difficult, but we're here to help. And you know, no longer can you say the Catholic Church doesn't understand and isn't here to help. We have resources and people and time and staff to help anybody.
You've done a lot of workshops. You've presented around the country. What do you tell these folks who basically are sitting there going, I'm 41 years old, I am now civilly single, he's long gone, okay, he's in Saskatchewan somewhere. Am I going to live the rest of my life alone? What do you tell them?
The first thing I say is go to the church. She's our mother. She's got wisdom. She's smart. She can help you through this. It may have been, for a lot of different valid reasons, that the marriage bond wasn't valid to begin with, and that's what happens in the annulment process. That's a scary topic to a lot of Catholics.
Well, some people say that's just Catholic divorce. That's all. That's Catholic divorce. What's the difference?
Well, we know there is no such thing as Catholic divorce. If you have a valid marriage bond, it can never be broken until death.
Wait a minute, who said that? Who's going to come up with something? Who's going to come up with a teaching like that?
Jesus Christ himself. I mean, he's the one who showed us how to be the bridegroom to the spouse.
It's interesting, the apostles' reaction, wasn't it? When our Lord said that, the apostles said, well, then it's better not to get married, because they knew what he was talking about. It wasn't a matter of, well, if you have certain reasons you can leave. He's saying, no. This is a God bond here. And the apostles are going, well, then you might as well not even take the chance. They knew human nature.
Yeah, and the feelings would be gone, and I don't want to stay here anymore. Right, exactly. And he says, no, you know why? That's not how I love you. I love you unconditionally, forever. And that's what marriage as a sacrament is supposed to do. Image, not just image that love that Jesus, the bridegroom, has for the bride, but our marriages get caught up into it, mystically in a certain sense.
Yeah, but wouldn't you have to want to be that way? Wouldn't you have to want to embrace that idea of marriage?
Well, yes, of course. And that's what we do.
I'm a trained psychologist. I ask those kind of profound questions that just sort of seem obvious. I get paid big bucks for this, you know.
Define big bucks.
Well, okay, I can buy a sandwich.
Okay.
In my office, I will get people who will come in, and they routinely say this, Christian or otherwise. Well, no, I think there are too many divorces. Too many divorces out there. And I just don't think that people should just get divorced for any reason. But in my case, what happens is the cases that fit me are okay. And I think in the church's wisdom, she said, you know, you crack that door open, everybody's going to run through it. It's human nature. I can't be expected to live with this kind of discontent. He's a jerk. Mm-hmm. She's high maintenance.
Right.
We disagree on discipline. There's no way. We're going to talk, if we visit again, which I think we're going to talk about not only the misconceptions, but the ideas that have run rampant in our culture that it is better to be apart than to stay together in a conflicted home. Mm-hmm. I know that is I was trained on that. That's the one.
It's better for the kids.
Better for the kids. I got that constantly.
Wrong.
That's what I imbibed in graduate school. Will you come back?
How much you paying me?
Same as I'm giving you this time around. I'll double it. I'll double it.
Double zero is zero. That sounds good.
I'll triple it. I'll triple it.
No, of course I'll be back. This is an important topic, and thank you for having me.
Thank you, Rose. Rose, sweet. Did you ever notice that grown-ups do a lot of talking? We've got our opinions about the way life should go, about the way parents should parent. Well, I had a real child psychologist into my home recently, and I picked her brain about you and her parents. Her name is Ariana. Nice name. Let's see what Ariana has to say about us. Hi, Ariana.
Hello.
How old are you?
13.
Tell children how to stay out of trouble for 3 months at a time. What do you have to do?
Well, you have to get involved in a lot of activities so you're not at home as much.
Oh.
Because they appreciate you more when you're not at home.
They do.
And then if you just tend to disappear every now and then, you know, and go upstairs and read your book for a couple hours on end, you know, they appreciate you a lot more when you're not there.
The strategy is the less I'm around, the less I can get in trouble. Is that what you're saying here?
Yes.
So you go up to mom and you say, I've been grounded for 2 weeks. When do I get off? Do you do that? Or do you just wait until they come to you and say, Ariana, okay, you're free now. Be about your business.
Well, I usually nag them more like, can't you like shorten it, you know?
You nag them. That's your favorite strategy? Words?
Well, yeah.
What's the best nagging strategy?
Well, a lot of times if you bribe them, it works better. You know, like if you'll massage them or something, it works a lot better than if you just...
Massage?
Yeah.
Like verbally massage? Like, oh, mother,
Yeah.
thank you for being my mother. I've been watching TV and I recognize it. You are probably the nicest mother that I've seen on TV. You're kind of a combination between, Ozzie and Harriet and Aunt Bee. How do you massage them? They're on to you.
Yeah, but what you have to do is you have to try to distract them and just take them away from what you've done and just try to, let them feel like...
Wait. For a young girl who gets in trouble every 3 months, to be this strategizing about how to get around your parents, is that because you're that sweet, or is it just because you're that good at massaging?
I guess it's a combination of both.
You grew up to be a mom. What would you most look out for from your children that you could be suspicious that, hey, they're trying to massage me like I used to do? What would set you off? What would give you the clue?
Well, if they overcompliment you,
Over-compliment.
that's big.
That's big.
Yeah.
That's big. Okay, all right.
And if they tried to get you to go places like, oh, why don't you just go hang out at, so-and-so's place?
Here,
and
Mom
have
and Dad, here's
fun?"
$10. Why don't you go watch a movie?
Exactly.
Kind of a reverse getting rid of a little kid.
Yeah.
Okay, over-compliment. If they try to get you to go somewhere, like, Mom, why don't you go take care of yourself for a change?
Yeah.
You'd be onto this?
I hope I would be,
Why?
because that's exactly what I would have done when I was little.
Well, there's good news and bad news here, young lady. First of all, the good news is I would absolutely love for you to be my child because you get in trouble every 3 months. The bad news is I'd be scared of you. I think you could outthink me. There's no doubt you could outthink me. Okay, I got one more question for you.
Okay.
One last one. How do you know your parents love you? See, we got to soften this up to show you really are a sweet
Okay.
kid.
Well, they are always selfless. They always think about me before I think about them.
Wait, are you massaging them? Is this a massage? Is this a national television massage?
Maybe.
Okay,
Maybe.
all right.
But
They always think about you. They put you
Yes.
first.
they really do. They have me in so many different activities, and you can just tell,
How do you tell?
in the long run.
How do you tell? Kisses, hugs,
Yeah, definitely way too much PDA.
PDA? What's that, honey?
Public display of affection.
Oh, is that your mom and dad?
Yes.
I feel rather inadequate getting out-thought by a 8th grader. I couldn't keep up with her. I think that if she lived in my home, I pretty much would probably have to sleep in the basement because she would somehow massage me out of every parenting technique that I had. What do you think about that young lady? First of all, she's sweet. She is sweet. We had a lot of off-camera interviews. She is a sweet girl. Her parents are delightful. She's one of 8 children. What do you think about either what she said, or did she prompt any question in you from her material? What have we got? Yes, dear. Hold on. Would you stand up, because they need to get a good picture of you.
Okay.
And your name?
Judy Berman.
Hi, Judy.
Do parents really fall for this? I mean, come on.
Well, okay. Hold on a second. We'll put the mic on everybody. Do parents really fall for this? Yeah. Yeah, what happens? You know what it is? A lot of it is intellectually we realize, whoa, I'm getting manipulated here. But emotionally, parents are soft.
Feels good.
It feels good. That's exactly right. It feels good. And I want to hope that my child is getting this and is in fact meaning it. I know, I'm delusional. I understand this. I would say as a shrink, approximately half of parents can actually get outmaneuvered? At least half. And the numbers go up as the kids get older, because the kids get smarter. You gotta really be stumbling around to get outmaneuvered by a 3-year-old. Okay? You throw a 15-year-old at you, like my son Peter back there, and you could run into real maneuverability problems. All of a sudden you're standing there and you realize, hey! He just got what he wanted and he's gone. My wallet. Other comments, other questions? Sir, now to stand up, let them know who you are.
Hi, I'm Ron.
Hi, Ron.
In our household, at least, when I was young, we out-manipulated my mother far more than my dad. Dad, why don't you take time for yourself? Go pamper yourself. Yeah, right. But we could really handle Mom pretty well.
Why? Why Mom? What's different between Mom and Dad?
Emotional. They were just much softer.
More nurturing.
More nurturing, things like that.
Dad was an Italian dad? You look Italian.
Correct.
And so what were his favorite phrases as a dad?
I thought my dad was illiterate when I was young. The only words I thought he knew was no and hey. Those took care of every situation.
That's how he disciplined everybody. Yeah, my dad's main discipline technique was, hey! And that was pretty much it. I think he did that to me at my wedding rehearsal dinner. When we come back, Living Right with Dr. Ray will bring in the favorite. He gets more applause than I do. Father Larry Richards in Catechism Wisdom. We're going to find out this time around wisdom about marriage. Don't go anywhere. You'll miss it.
You need love, and God is love. God knows everything about sexuality. Isn't it amazing? The first commandment ever out of God's mouth was increase and multiply.
When I was in grad school, we got a lot of notions, and we got notions that took hold in the popular culture. There is some advice that is just worth ignoring. Who has more wisdom about living right? The Catholic Church, founded by Jesus Christ, been on earth approximately 2,000 years, or modern psychology, which tells folks how to live. As always, with me on Catechism Wisdom is my friend, Father Larry Richards, pastor of St. Joseph's Church, Bread of Life Community in Erie, Pennsylvania, and I will brag for you.
Please.
You get around a lot, the country, the galaxy.
That's what they say. You get around.
Well, you only go one time there and
exactly.
they move you to someplace else.
Absolutely.
Father Larry, let me tell you what the Catechism says about marriage.
Please, Dr. Ray.
Yes, I would think you'd know this, but I'll read it to you in case. Section 2362. The acts in marriage by which the intimate and chaste union of the spouses takes place are noble and honorable. The truly human performance of these acts enriches the spouses in joy and gratitude. Father Larry, I really kind of don't want to criticize some of the things that you preach from the pulpit, but this whole idea that sexual union is reserved for marriage, aren't we kind of past that?
No, never. Because the reality is, sex by definition is a giving of your life for somebody else. And so if you're going to give your life away to somebody else, then all the other preconditions got to be there, or it's not truly the giving of your life.
What precondition?
That you have to give
I love the person. That's a precondition.
Well, then you haven't died for them unless you'd given their life spiritually, psychologically, socially, financially, everything. That's the point. That's why marriage is the place where I give my life for you. So anytime sexuality happens outside of a marriage, it's a lie because it's not here. I'll give you this to make me feel good. Sex by definition isn't about me and how I feel. It's about you and how I can give you my life.
Yeah, but modern notions, and led in a lot of respects by the charge of psychology, says that between
psychologists, I'll tell you.
Well, I had to make a living.
Yeah, not good, but anyway.
Two consenting adults,
sure.
Two deciding on their own people, if you will, can come together in some kind of union, physical, and who should tell them you can't?
Well, and again, I think most people, they take sexuality and don't go far enough. Sexuality, if it's just an expression of two bodies having sex with each other, what a waste. But when you're really in love and you've given yourself spiritually, it should be, sexuality by definition should be the consummation of a life that's already been given. So you share, like I often say, it's so hard that, you know, I am more intimate with more men and women than they are with their spouses. Why? Because I see their soul, and they'll share with me as their priest their soul. But even though they share their bodies, sometimes these couples, they never share their soul. And because sexuality doesn't take on the spiritual reality, it becomes less of what it really is. So every element of sexuality also needs that spiritual element. And when people enter into this sexuality with no spiritual element, it's a horrible reality instead of a reality of love.
Psychology is oftentimes forced by reality, which of course reflects the church's wisdom, into agreeing with the church. There was a fascinating survey done not so long ago.
Was it fascinating?
Fascinating.
Oh, wow, great.
In the words of Mr. Spock. The survey asked a wide range of folks, what is your level of sexual satisfaction? Singles, people who had no morals whatsoever, people who had been married 2 times, 3 times. This is going to come as no surprise to you, but I'll ask you the question anyway. Who do you think reported consistently the highest level of sexual satisfaction?
I don't know, doctor. Tell me.
Thank you. I was glad that you did ask me that. Contented marrieds.
Wow.
Faithful marrieds. The highest level. Conventional wisdom says, no, 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 you need variety. Conventional wisdom is wrong.
Exactly correct. You need love, and God is love. God knows everything about sexuality. Isn't it amazing? The first commandment ever out of God's mouth was increase and multiply. So he told us and gave us a definition. Sex is for procreation, and love is part of that reality. And so, again, the world says go for it, but isn't it amazing that some of these people who keep doing these things are always empty inside? When you do it with God, he gives you peace, and he fulfills your emptiness.
One test of wisdom is how well it works in the real world. When our Lord says, union, physical intimacy is to be confined to marriage, I guess you could say he knew what he was talking about. Thank you, Father Larry. Can you imagine, huh? That is a hard saying. Who can follow it? Our culture says those days of marriage commitment and the sexual act are gone. They're gone. We've outgrown them. Well, if there is a God, and he's infinite, and he tells you do it this way, don't do it this way, you're going to be wrong if you go against him. Comments, questions about what Father Larry may have stimulated in you? Anything? Yes, ma'am. Please stand up so we can see you and your name.
Elizabeth.
Hi, Elizabeth.
Hi. You know, actually, I used to think that what does a Catholic priest know about marriage? But as listening to that little tape, I realized, you know, people tell priests very intimate details. And he does see the heart and would come up with a lot of wisdom. That I just refigured my mind on that, actually.
You what, 6 minutes?
Yeah.
Well, you're easily influenced. People walk into my office before I had kids, had no kids, and I would give them advice on discipline. And many of them would say, do you have any children? No. So I had to go out, get 10 children. It was a business move. But I found that the folks who least wanted to hear what I had to say were the ones who said, do you have any children? This is a very widespread nonsense idea that I have to walk in your shoes before I can give you any kind of decent advice. I oftentimes will say to my clients, okay, let me see if I got this right. You want me to maybe experience this. Okay, that means I've never had trouble with the law. I've never been an alcoholic. I've not been into drugs. I'm married to the same woman. I could really only work with middle-aged males who have not been in trouble with the law and don't abuse chemicals. That's about all I could work with. I've never been a woman. I've never been a troubled adolescent. I've never been somebody who's left my wife. How could I give them any kind of advice at all? Next time you have a physical problem, go to the doctor and say, hey, wait a minute. Have you ever had arthritis? Okay, well then don't try to treat me with arthritis. You see how that falls apart? It's basically saying nobody else can give you ideas or wisdom if they haven't walked in your shoes. And remember this, even if I walk in your shoes, that doesn't mean my ideas are going to be any better. It just means I could be as miserable as you. It means I could give you the same dumb advice that you've fallen upon that puts you in the position you're in. And speaking of dumb advice, when I was in grad school, we got a lot of notions, and we got notions that took hold in the popular culture. There is some advice that is just worth ignoring. Maybe the granddaddy of them all, promulgated by Sigmund Freud. He said, a child's personality is established by the age of 5 or 6. Now, if any of you have children in here under 5 or 6, my advice to you, get out of here right now. Go home, start disciplining them. You don't have much time left. Okay, you're on the edge. I don't know about you. I was very different now than I was when I was 5 or 6. My wife says I have the maturity level of a 9-year-old, which is quite high for husbands. I mean, that's up there. When I burp the alphabet at the table, I always say, excuse me. When you were 5 or 6, any political party affiliations? Deep religious convictions? What qualities would you value in an older second-grade man at age 5 or 6? This is old psychological nonsense, but it lingers. It lingers. I asked a group of ladies one night, all women, when is personality established? It's complete now. You can't do anything about it. Lady in the back row raised her hand. When you're married? No, ma'am. When your life is over. She said, same thing. That was a tough crowd. That was really a tough crowd that night. She was sitting way in the back. I think she left early. I don't know. Many of you have come to the faith later in life. You look back in your childhood, your young adulthood, you weren't anywhere near God. You were living your life, you had all kinds of things going on, and somewhere in that journey, age 20, 22, 26, 35, 41, God got your attention, and you became a believer. Well, now, if the Holy Spirit had to say, you know, I wish I would have gotten to you before 5 or 6, okay? I can't create a new person now out of you. Your personality's been crystallized for 42 years. Even if you were 7 or 8, I might have had a chance. But 5 or 6 is my real optimal operating time. This is telling God, forget it. You can't transform a life, you can't transform a soul because the personality is already laid out. Now, there is one thing I do have to say as a qualifier here. We are all wired different. And shy little kids tend to become shy adults. And aggressive little kids tend to become more aggressive adults. And talkative people tend to become talkative adults, or TV hosts, or guys that just talk 200 to 400 words a minute with gusts up to 800. Yes, we are all wired a certain way. We have a certain temperament, and that temperament is pretty much there from birth. So in that sense, you build upon your temperament. But you know, it's not a sin to be talkative. That's not a sin, okay? It isn't a sin to be shy. It's not a sin. So when we transform who we are, it's a moral transformation. You know, I don't scream at her anymore. I used to scream at her. I don't scream at her anymore, okay? Now, I'm still a guy with a temper, but I don't scream at her. Personality is not established by the age of 5 or 6. But it is kind of laid in there a little bit. Some children take this much parenting to raise. Some children in the same family take that much. You're raising that one? Feel pretty cocky. I'm pretty good at this. I'm a natural. I told her, don't touch my knickknacks. I'm not about to go putting my knickknacks up 15 feet off the ground guarded by Rottweilers in electrified cages. This child knows when I mean no, I mean no. And then the second one comes along and eats your Rottweiler. First one was a freebie round, a mulligan from God. Here, play with this. I'll save the real human till later. Once again, we are closing it up and living right with Dr. Ray. As I always do, I got to give my thanks to you guys. Don't clap for yourself, that'd be self-centered. I'm going to give my thanks to you because you've been wonderful. There's no program without you. What did we learn today? Well, we learned the birth order effect is kind of a parenting effect. In other words, you tend to get a little more sloppy with your kids as you get older, and maybe it's because you get more tired. And maybe it's because you say, here, take the car. I know you're 11. That's okay. Here, just don't speed, okay? Secondly, what did we find out from our guest Rose Sweet? We found out there's a lot of misconceptions that are just swallowed whole by folks out there regarding step-parenting, regarding marriage. And speaking of marriage, what did Father Larry tell us? Well, God kind of designed us to be committed. He designed us to be fully, faithfully unified with our spouse. And if that's not going to happen, the car starts to wobble, and sometimes it wrecks. God knows what He's talking about. Oriana, she knew what she was talking about. You will be more acutely aware of when you are massaged. And just remember one thing. The only people better at psychologically outmaneuvering you than a teenager is a spouse. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for joining us here on Living Right with Dr. Ray. Hang in there. We'll see you next time around. God bless you. Next time on Living Right with Dr. Ray, a Harvard-trained psychiatrist who believes in God. Are words discipline? How many words? Kid goes to college. Can you control him? What leverage do you have? And Father Larry from the Catechism is going to tell us why materialism is a trap. See you then.